Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. We will have some fun today. Ron Puning is going to talk to us about the moral lessons from famous comic books and comic book heroes. Ron and I were talking about how a lot of us as children probably learned more moral lessons from comic books and comic TV shows. Remember Batman and Superman and the Green Hornet were so popular in the 50s and 60s. Okay, Norley, yes. And they're still on, that's right. And Batman, yes. But a lot of us, grew up with those and learned a lot of good lessons outside of church from the popular culture. And so Ron's going to tell us a lot of fun things about it. He even has his Green Lantern ring on. That's right. So before we start our usual announcements, Zoomers, nice to have you here. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. And we are recording this for future playback on YouTube. And I usually talk today about political things, but feel free to criticize whoever in comic book land you would like to. No restraint today.
Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor's bad. That's
Joker.
right. That's right. The good, and the bad, and the ugly. Other announcements. 5 o'clock tonight is our party at Puning's house.
So we can set them up.
You need tables and chairs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring tables
I mean,
and
I've
chairs.
been-
54 are signed up, so it'll be a good.
About 30, so I need enough for 20. What is it?
Bring chairs,
You need it?
tables and chairs.
So if you have, and you're bringing them a little bit early, so we can get.
I'll say, I've got some.
Bring folding chairs. It'll be a fun party. Okay, very good.
And remember,
Okay.
don't forget.
Yes. What do you think of the sermon today?
Pretty
Interesting sermon about the Matrix movie?
Yes.
Fiction becomes science fact.
How science fiction becomes science fact. Are we living in the Matrix today in America? Yes, Bill. Yes, Susie.
I was in Oxford, it was about 2011 or 12. And we were in the school, in the grounds, because we were going to Evensong. And they were filming The Matrix there.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Second one was.
That's an old one, but
Oh, wow.
like one of the sequels.
They did sequels, yeah.
Yeah, one of the sequels they did, and some of the professors would come out and say to them, go away, go away. They didn't like them being there.
This was Oxford, England.
And they'd say to us, come on in, 'cause they felt like they were in the way of, the other people. And, but I do remember that was pretty cool. We didn't stay they were riding a bike or something, it was some bike scene
Oh, thanks for
they were
sharing.
doing.
Very good.
So you didn't get to be an extra?
No, we didn't go into the.
Maybe not intentionally did you, but watch the movie.
Oh, no.
I thought Jerry might talk more about the Neo character as the Christ figure. And realizing at some point, Neo finally realizes he's the one, he's the savior. And how he has to come to terms with that. And I always thought about Christ that way. Was he a child or a teenager or 30 when he finally realized this is who I am? And I'm destined to do this. So I was kind of looking for that, but everybody does their sermon differently. Yeah,
Get the story of the
I will
clay
ask you.
pigeons.
Pardon me,
You
Steve.
forgot the story of the clay pigeons.
Clay pigeons in the Matrix? Are they,
It's a story about Christ as a kid.
or as a child, he brought clay pigeons to life? Yes, lots of mythological stories like that. Sure. Sure. Okay.
Blue jelly beans. Where do you get blue jelly?
You want blue or red jelly beans? Yeah, I'm gonna look for those and put them on his desk. Okay. Any other comments about things in the news for just a minute? It's another sad school shooting this week, this time through the windows. He didn't even go into the school.
Shots, it's
And
fortunate
what
he
can we
didn't
do to stop that? Yes, Bill.
One of the things that I noticed, and I think sometimes on a computer like this, when you go to church, this church in particular, that I'm really relating to now.
Louder, please, Bill.
That I'm really relating to now. But whatever the sermon is, it's like, oh yeah, that's just what I was dealing with in my life. But the thing that I have significant reservations about artificial intelligence. I think it's like, didn't you guys read the science fiction that they all predicted? We'll be doing what the machines are doing.
Yes, science
That's-
fiction
that's
predicted
all.
artificial intelligence
I-
taking
I'm
over.
really not- Right now, it's not improving anybody's life except the people who own things.
Maybe so.
It's not improving, in my opinion, the user's life.
Okay. Okay, yes, go ahead.
What really kind of upset me was the amount of money that AI developers are being offered, especially from Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
So it's like the latest offer was $250 million.
Developers of AI are making huge amounts of money, of course. Electricity requirement on the data centers, yes, Norley.
And also to your point, I have a friend whose son is an AI programmer. However, he was fired because now what they're doing is consolidation. They're buying up the smaller companies and consolidating across large corporations. And this just happened like 4 weeks ago.
Of course, yes.
was making big bucks.
Yeah, I'm glad I can still work at a place and put stuff together.
Okay, we want to give Ron plenty of time and he wants your comments too. And there are microphones behind Steve Horst in the back and on the side beside Helen there. If you grab those and pass them around, we'd appreciate it. Okay, Ron, take it away.
Okay. All right, there's a bumper sticker that says, let your inner child out to play. And that's not what inspired this lesson this morning. I've always been very interested in the moral, what puts the moral development and what controls the moral development of kids. It certainly applies to what we do downstairs in terms of teaching. And I think every parent asks that question. What do I need to do right to bring my kids up so they're good, decent, honest people? You don't want to be the mother or father of a serial killer or just somebody that you'd be ashamed of, you know, that commits fraud and that kind of stuff. And that line, two things. Number one, here's an article talking about the how Americans are not reading anymore. Between 2004 and 2024, every year there's been a 3% decrease in the number of people that read for pleasure. So I'll pass that around. Also, here is a compendium off the internet of it looked at a whole spectrum of studies that simply asked the question, what's the origin and development of the moral sense? And it collects at least 50 articles, scientifically screened and looked at articles that ask that question, what builds morality in kids? And we'll maybe do this as a lesson sometime, but some of the key factors, of course, your parents, but it's also the peers, the kids, your kids play with. They've said has a bigger role than you might think. If they're playing with the Beagle Boys bullies next door, and they're in a bad neighborhood with some morally deficient kids. It's bad for them, real bad for them. So I'll pass that around. We'll probably do a lesson in the near future. In that regard, though, we get into comic books. You say, no, wait a second. Comic books are childish kid stuff. But I've looked back into my history and asked myself the question, what were the foundations? What put a a moral sense within me. The more I looked at it, I had to acknowledge that it was partly some of my peers, the large Catholic family across the street, that had an exemplary number of good guys that helped guide me and acted almost like pseudo fathers to me. They, by the way, introduced me to comic books. And I remember, in fact, here was one of the first comic books I got from them when I was 9 years old. And I was just enthralled. Unfortunately, there was not much reading material in my household where I grew up. We got a paper, a morning paper, and my mom did buy the Golden Encyclopedia at the supermarket once, and I read every one of them cover to cover. But I was thirsty for reading material, and comic books were one of the things that really enthralled me. But I was particularly impressed by the content of the moral and the sci-fi combo that they really put into the DC comics of particularly the late 50s and early 60s. A tremendous amount of moral character. They held up superheroes that had an absolute stern commitment to truth, justice, and the American way. Yeah.
I remember that expression, but I've never heard of Green Lantern.
Okay.
I neither.
Ron said that comic book is worth $70 today.
Yeah.
Really?
Some of them rise in value.
If you've got the first Spider-Man appearance, Amazing Fantasy, I think it's up to $20,000.
Oh,
So if I could go back in a time machine to 1961 or 62, I would clear the rack of every one of those I could buy. Some of them have tremendous value.
When did the first comic book come out?
Forties
to fifties, so.
Oh, 40s and even earlier. We'll get into that in just a minute. So let's get going here. We can jump to the second slide. Second slide, one more down. There we go. Green Lantern, of course, in his secret identity, was a test pilot for an aerospace company in Southern California. And you can see where my interest in aviation and aerospace, getting a degree in engineering, aerospace engineering in particular, who knows? I think this comic book might have affected me. And helping, yeah, but notice the Green Lantern had an oath there. He had to charge his ring every 24 hours. And he would recite this oath: in brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. But he had incredibly high morals. We'll talk about that a little more, that it was your duty to protect the planet and your section of the universe from evil, and to go get evil and squelch it, destroy it, and stand up for goodness and righteousness and whatever. There's a page out of one of the Green Lantern comic books, this one here, where the Soviet spies are trying to steal secrets, and there's the X-15 rocket plane being launched off the bottom of a large carrier aircraft. And I can definitely see where these things kind of work their way into my my development as a kid. All right, let's jump to the next slide. Of course, today with less TV, or reaching back to the past, there was far less TV and internet. Reading materials, they say, clearly played a larger role in infusing moral themes into America's youth in the 50s and 60s. More kids did get influenced by reading material, and a large number of them from comic books. And most of the scholars say comic books were significant moral influencers. Interestingly enough, Senator McCarthy and some others went on a witch hunt in 1954, and they said that there was too much violence, horror, and sex in comics. And there were some that a few comics that sold those themes. And they were talking about banning comics and how they were destroying the moral fiber. It was a communist plot to destroy America's youth and lead them down the paths of unrighteousness. So a lot of the comic companies went together and formed something called the Comics Code Authority. And you'll see that imprint on the upper corner of most of the comics. There were some of the comic companies that said, we're so far above that, our stories have nothing to do with degrading the moral fiber of America. How many saw a Classics Illustrated comic? They would take great books and great works of literature and put them into comic books, and did very well. And then, of course, there were the comic books. I don't know if anybody remembers picking up a Dell comic of things like Woody Woodpecker, Bugs Bunny, Richard, yeah, and they, they said, we don't even have to think about that code because we're so far above that ridiculous, horror and sexual violence and stuff that we don't even need to sign on to it. But at least DC and a couple of the other companies said, yeah, we'll sign on to this, and we'll put a stamp of approval so parents don't have to worry about their kids buying a copy of Flash or Green Lantern or Justice League.
Ron,
Go ahead.
question, please. Today, there's something called anime that's like graphic.
It's been around since like the 70s.
Has it been around a long time?
Long time.
Isn't that like comic books for?
Yes.
It's a manga,
Huh.
and it's a Japanese form.
Loves it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and. Nancy and I
Graphic,
both
that's
have
what it-
Novels.
Okay.
Graphic novels are basically.
Yeah.
But they're like comic books in novel form.
Yes,
So-
Nancy and I both have sons who are millennials, and this was, I mean, my kid was like 10 or 11. That's all his peer group was doing. It's very much like a comic strip, but from an entirely different cultural perspective. So,
Oh, wow.
manga's been around for a long time. And anime now, okay, so may I make one more comment?
Yeah, what is anime?
Anime is like a comic strip kind of format, but it's all, well, I'm just trying to think, Sleeping Beauty or something like that,
Okay.
from Disney. It takes off that, but much more influenced by Japanese kind of artistic expression.
Oh, yeah.
And generally speaking, it usually goes into more of like sexual content, I think.
Oh, okay.
Work for tweens.
Okay.
But now there is an extremely popular movie out called K-pop Demon Hunters.
Huh.
And I've actually watched it and was like, yes, because I'm into K-drama and not so much K-pop, but that is traditionally kind of the anime format. So if you see, or if you have a little kid or a tween or somebody in your life who's watched K-pop Demon Hunters, then you should at least watch like the first 10 minutes to find out what's happening.
Yes, let me mention that. It's funny you mentioned that. I watched it last night because there's some little kids in our family that say this is the biggest thing lately. It's on Netflix. It's a free movie if you take Netflix.
Huh.
It's called K-pop Demon Hunters. And it's about the Korean boy band K-pop,
Oh,
which is one of the biggest in the world. But then they make a girls band out of this also, and they are hunting demons and shooting demons. Yes, it's,
But again,
okay.
it is focused on women, young women, K-pop idols themselves,
Huh.
who then discover this other boy band. And the
Yes.
boy band has the demons
Yeah.
going on. So my perspective is like, yay, women get to lead the charge. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's full of a lot of the tropes that you see in K-drama and also Japanese too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Netflix says this is on par to be the biggest the most watched movie and Netflix history.
Yes.
So if you're interested, watch it and get an idea.
Different though than the current trend toward graphic novels. The young kids now are reading, but they're reading graphic novels, which have been, not animated, but
Okay.
cartoon with the text.
Okay.
Graphic novels also have a lot of emphasis on emotion.
Emotion.
If you're reading, they would show that graphically, so you could see, this person is sad and crying, this person is happy as heck, and
Good.
there's a lot of emphasis on graphic novels on that.
Very good. Ron, sorry to get off
Oh,
on that,
no.
but it's interesting what's going on today.
Yeah, sure.
Here one time and someone had a Bible as in a comic book.
Sure.
Bible.
We have one.
Yeah, the picture Bible sold millions and still does.
I just wanted to say that there is a class that I was told about offered by some Methodist church organization for $35 about K-pop and the Demon Hunters movie.
Oh, wow, really?
Specifically, and an analysis of it. So I don't know whether it's in juxtaposition, but yeah, people are really into this.
Yeah.
So what does the K stand for? Is that
Korea.
Korea?
Oh,
That's what I
okay.
thought. It stands for Korea, okay. So we have the Japanese and Korean. Okay.
Right. So I mentioned the Comics Code Authority. And there's a picture of a monster out of a Green Lantern comic book from 1960. And you can see how they have de-horrorized the monster. That monster doesn't look too terribly scary. You can definitely see that. There was also a bipolar person in Batman in the early 50s named Two-Face. And he was horribly disfigured on one side of his face. And that character disappeared from the Batman comics in the 50s in response to the Comics Code. Next one. Moral building reading. How many here have read like the Berenstain Bears to their kids? Or we used to like the Bill Peet books. This simply amplifies my conviction, and I think most people, that certain reading material with comic-like characters, or be they comic superheroes or caricatures, can definitely have a positive moral impact. I don't think I've read a Berenstain Bear book that didn't have an underlying moral theme where it held up here's the right thing to do. So next one. All right. Jump back one to the Superman, up. The first one. In your handout is a Superman, the one on the left, the picture on the left, it's in your handout, actually showed up about 1952 or 53. And if you read this was one of the strongest acceptance, woke, whatever you want to call it, ads to ever appear in a comic book. It was way ahead of its time. I won't read it to you other than it says,
Ron, go ahead and read it, because.
okay. And remember, boys and girls, your school, like our country, is made up of Americans of many different races, religions, and national origins. So if you hear anybody talk against a schoolmate or anyone else because of its religion, race, or national origin, don't wait. Tell him that kind of talk is un-American. Yeah. And then on the second page of your handout, there's a thing called Superman Says, Lend a Friendly Hand. Wow, is this powerful? It's the cartoon there on the right side of this. But if you read this, it says, the kids are saying, oh, we don't want Sandor along. Those refugee kids can't talk English or play ball or anything. And then Superman comes down and says, well, you can read it. People who have fled to another country because of political events, war, disaster are placed in refugee camps like this one. This is where they live in shabby, crowded barracks. And Superman is showing them. Lots of international organizations have been helping during the World Refugee Year. You can help too by being friendly toward kids like Sandor. So here's an ad and a comic book from the very early 60s, where clearly he's saying accept refugees, immigrants, be friends with them. So again, that comic was ahead of its time. Let's flip to the next one. Go over to one of our next favorite heroes. Batman speaks for equality. That's also in your handout. I think it is. It's page 3, yeah. But the last 2 frames. Don't believe those crackpot lies about people who worship differently, or whose skin is a different color, or whose parents come from another country. Remember our American heritage of freedom and equality. So here's Batman also coming in with some very powerful anti persecution materials. Pretty interesting. Next one. We did the Batman. So we've got Superman, we've got Batman. What's the one? Spider-Man. Right below the Batman one. One more up. Up one more, right there. Okay. And we did that one. Down one. That one right there. And of course, Superman's motto. Does anyone remember? Yeah. American way, be truth, justice, and tolerance. American way. The 1948 Superman movie serial had a kindly Paul Kent advising young Clark to fight not for truth, justice, and the American way, but for truth, justice, and tolerance. Next slide. There's another Superman. One more up. Yeah. In 1948, there was also a little Superman series and the radio serial. And that radio serial was titled The Clan of the Fiery Cross. And it was a pretty strong takedown of the Ku Klux Klan. So here's Superman taking a strong fighting attack against the Ku Klux Klan. So these guys really, with Superman, did a good job. Next slide down. Of course, the Batman origin. Here's a couple slides out of the Batman origin, where young Bruce Wayne is with his parents. And they're going down a street in Gotham City or wherever, and they get mugged, and the mugger shoots his dad and mom, and young Bruce Wayne makes a vow then and there to dedicate his life to stamping out evil and injustice and bad people, like certainly the guy that killed his parents. Yeah.
Hey, Ron,
Yes.
just this week, I think it was a senator from Minneapolis area, talked about needing to send up a Batman suit.
Really?
It would have been Amy Klobuchar, my favorite. One of the other Minnesota senator. Okay.
That's funny.
Okay. Next slide down. Okay, so there's young Bruce Wayne. He's at the grave of his parents and vowing to dedicate his life to stamping out evil. He gives himself scientific, athletic, and physical training to become the renowned Batman, to go out and strike terror into the hearts of those that perpetrate evil. The one on the right, we now jump over to Marvel Comics, to Spider-Man. Spider-Man had kind of a similar origin, if you remember. A bad guy shot his dear uncle, and Spider-Man decided to, as a kid, to go fight the world of evil and get revenge for the terrible thing of the shooting of his uncle. Okay, next one down.
Did Spider-Man get bit by a spider? Is that where he got his power
He
from?
got bit by a radioactive spider. Confirmed.
Yeah, then you get shoot.
Yep, all right. Okay, I remember what a junk pile mind I've got. I was at a backyard camp out with the Catholic family kids that came across the street, and we had a camp out, and they would bring some comics over for us to read with flashlights. We were as we were in our little tent, and this is one of the ones I read. Batman had been transported to this planet with aliens, and they end up making peace on that alien world. And I'll quote Batman there. "Farewell, friends." This is before Batman and Robin are ready to get sent back to Earth, where they've been kidnapped from. "We have learned that those who believe in freedom can work together, even though they come from places millions of miles apart across the endless seas of space." So this story brought forth the theme of working together across the universe and even alien civilizations to bring freedom and justice into the universe. Impressive. Next slide. We're now going to go back to perhaps this might be the very origin of comic books. And I'm not even sure there's folks in this class that can go back this far. There was a hero that started about 1932. It was sold as a pulp cereal. They sold books, and the guy was a fictional character called Doc Savage, and he had a group of 5 folks, and they sold millions of these. But Doc Savage had a fortress of solitude in the Arctic. He had not a bat cave, but he had a penthouse on the top of the Empire State Building, or a similar building, where he and his group, his league of good guys, would take requests for help to right injustice and stop bad things that were going on in the world. And they went all over the world fighting injustice and whatever. And most people feel that the origin of Batman and Superman has its origins in those Doc Savage pulp magazines that first appeared on the newsstands in the early 1930s. And they sold by the millions. The stories, of course, were also reprinted in paperback books starting about 1962. They reprinted over 100 of these stories, and I bought them all over a period of 10 years. Doc Savage Adventures. So there was the quote original superhero. Did anybody here ever read a Doc Savage story?
Is that all text, Ron?
Yeah, Doc Savage was not comic book. It was all pulp hero. And I guess reaching back before that, was there a fictional all-American boy, Jack Armstrong, or something that rescued girls in distress and righted wrongs and helped little old ladies across the street and all that.
That's Do-Right.
Yeah.
Remember Dudley Do-Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Canadian Mountie?
All right. There was the first Doc Savage book that I read, The Lost Oasis. That was a great story. They go out to Egypt in a Zeppelin and fight this terrible cult that's starting in Egypt. And there's these deadly vampire bats that attack them. Doc Savage also had a real cute cousin called Pat, and she was a very strong woman hero that played a powerful role in several of the Doc Savage stories, which certainly introduced a strong female superhero. She didn't have superpowers, but certainly was good for showing the feminine wisdom, just like the Avengers with Emma Peel. Everybody saw that was a very powerful role model as the female partner of the Avengers on the BBC program. Next one. So again, there's Doc Savage. There was actually one of the paperbacks was called The Fortress of Solitude. There's Doc standing up there in front of his Fortress of Solitude. And does anybody remember from Superman, from the movie or the comic, is traveling to the Fortress of Solitude?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, he had the giant key to get in and all that stuff. And they've shown that on several of the Superman movies, I believe.
Almost thinker kind of thing, he'd be there like. And he was kind of having a retreat.
Oh, retreat.
From his day-to-day work.
Okay. All right, next one. Getting back to Green Lantern. Green Lantern, of course, his origin, they created a fictional sci-fi group of blue-skinned spacemen that were out on this planet called Oa. And these near immortal guardians, they called them, were called the Guardians of the Universe. And they went around the universe to different planets and made people Green Lanterns by giving them a ring and selecting people that had good willpower and honesty and integrity and all this kind of good stuff. And so there's the story of how Green Lantern got his origin. The red-skinned guy landed on Earth, was dying, and had passed the ring on to a worthy successor. And he, of course, picked Hal Jordan to do that. And there's Hal Jordan appearing to some of the other Green Lanterns in space from different planets and various alien life forms. Next one. Also, there was an evil renegade Green Lantern, just like Satan broke away from the kingdom of heaven. There was a Sinestro, I mean, the name itself, Sinestro, and he looked like, the devil. And he was Green Lantern's deadliest and most vile nemesis. Next one. And then, of course, Green Lantern was a member of a whole group of superheroes called the Justice League of America. Did anybody read a Justice League of America comic book? Okay.
No, but the movies are continuing, aren't they?
Yep.
New Justice League movies
Yeah.
that are very popular.
Uh-huh. But all the DC heroes got together and formed the Justice League of America. And this was one of the first, this was inspiring. This was the first Justice League of America comic book I read. But there are these evil dudes out in the universe somewhere. They're going from planet to planet and stealing the life force of each planet. And that made each planet die out. And this one group that was being overtaken by these evil dudes contacted the Justice League and sent them to try to stop this evil alien race that was wiping out and borging and conquering all these worlds. And of course, the Justice League wins the battle against these evil dudes and saves the universe. And I always like this, the fourth panel there, where it shows the Justice League getting into this transporter bubble. And the quote that, farewell and good luck, Justice League of America. The hopes of a billion worlds ride with you. So here I am, a 9-10-year-old boy, and I'm reading this story. And this mighty Justice League is going out to save the universe from these horrible, oppressive, sinister guys that are stealing the life force from the other planets. Okay, let's move ahead a little bit.
Hey, Ron, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Does this align sort of in time to when we had Star Trek in the 60s?
Pretty well, yeah. When was the first Star Trek episode aired? 65, 66? Okay. All right. All right. DC Comics also did well bringing the female role into its comics. We can see Supergirl there, her first appearance in Action Comics, about 1957, 58. Batwoman appearing in Batman about 1956. And of course, Wonder Woman, Hawk Girl, and then Green Lantern, who has this friendly nemesis. She's really not a bad gal, called Star Sapphire. So DC Comics did start to bring in and develop a lot of the female superheroes. Next one. There was also some romance and courtship put into the comics. There's Batgirl stealing a kiss with Robin. Of course, Batwoman planning one on Batman. We can see Superman embracing this foxy-looking superhero. And of course, Green Lantern dealing with this nice lady who's trying to get him to marry her. Next one. All right. Action Comics. Action Comics also introduced in Superman Crypto and Streaky, Super Dog and Super Cat. If you go to see the Superman movie, you'll see Crypto show up. Crypto was his name. Also, here's an excerpt from a Green Lantern adventure where he goes and this little old lady spots some bad guys who are mistreating a horse, not giving him enough water, reports him to Green Lantern, and he goes and makes good. So this taught the moral themes. These stories kind of taught that, you know, animals are good, you protect animals, and et cetera, et cetera. Next one. And again, of course, Green Lantern definitely taught me that I like that title, Fight Those Commie Bastards. They definitely showed that there were nasty commies that were trying to destroy our country and steal secrets. And Green Lantern did everything in his power to go get them and stop them and stand for the American way. And I love that as a kid. You know, we were in the heights of the Cold War. And all right, there's the American ideal for me. Next one. Two presidents show up in comic books in the 1960s. Superman has a mission with President Kennedy. This was published shortly after the assassination of President John Kennedy. They published a short story asking American youth to join the health and physical fitness effort of John Kennedy. And then, of course, there was the comic book where that Marvel Comics put out. I got a copy of it, where they had Obama appear in a Marvel comic.
Obama man.
Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, there's a couple scenes where Obama and Spider-Man are interacting. They certainly portrayed Obama in a very positive light. Okay.
Do you think they put Trump in that?
Okay, back up to fighting political corruption. Bring down to.
Down. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right there. Here we go. This came out of Green Lantern #9 in 1962. And I was impressed with it as a kid. This was out of a story called Green Lantern's Brother Act. Green Lantern has two good brothers. One of them is a district attorney. And the bad guys are trying to make sure his brother doesn't win the election because his brother is an honest guy. And Green Lantern kind of steps in to help him. And Green Lantern is thinking in that one panel, theoretically, I'm only supposed to use my power ring to combat evil. But if the outfit we Jordans are out to beat in this election isn't evil, I don't know what is. So here was a story from 1962 where Green Lantern takes a stand against evil politicians that are trying to defeat his brother, who is a good guy, running for district attorney. So I've always loved this story. Next one. Green Lantern also had a guy called Dr. Polaris, the man who mastered magnetism, who had a mental disorder, and he was kind of taken over by his work with magnetism that brought out the evil side of his personality. This story stressed the importance of mental health and understanding what caused evil and combating it. So I thought it was ahead of its time. Next one. There was not only a Flash, but there was a Kid Flash introduced in 1961. And here, Kid Flash is helping out in an orphanage. You know, again, good stuff. Superhero going to help orphan kids. And the three orphan kids figure out his secret identity. But being good kids like they are, they agree to keep it secret, not spill his secret identity. The superhero Daredevil, we jump over to Marvel Comics, was blind, and he goes on to use his limited abilities that had been enhanced remarkably so that he can be a superhero working just with his other senses. So there's a good example of a comic book showing respect for the handicapped, understanding of it, etc. We'll jump down, we're almost done here. Once we moved out of the 60s, got into the 70s, 76 was maybe the most hard-hitting comic book. Sales were dropping off in the 76. The baby boomers were getting old enough to discard comic books. They had a Green Lantern in 76 was commended by the mayor of New York and several other organizations. Green Arrow had a sidekick, like Batman had a Robin. Green Arrow had a protege called Speedy, and Speedy ended up being a heroin addict. And this comic book struck right at the evils and the terror of drug addiction, and is considered a landmark comic in that regard. Again, this is 1976. And of course, they also introduced a Black Green Lantern, just a few issues later. So Green Lantern in the 70s did mold into more of a social justice and more advanced moral themes. Okay, one more slide to go. Discussion. Shaping a generation. There's Green Lantern trying to combat nuclear disaster. And then, of course, there's a Wonder Woman comic from the 70s where she's gone off to Red China, and she makes the comment, if the red something doesn't kill me, then the Chinese army will. So she's out there trying to combat some of the worst of the Chinese army. Okay, so there's some of our moral themes. Let's get some comments from the gang here.
Use the microphone, please, if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. Just a couple of quick comments. When we were kids growing up and you talked about your family, you know, we had about the streets and the family and stuff like that. We had enough kids who read comic books religiously that we would have comic book trading things.
Oh, wow.
And we had read all these to death, you know, and then there were the double ones that were a quarter, you know. And so my mom or one of us would call somebody else's mom 5 blocks away and say, and we would get together and we'd go through and seen that one, seen that one, seen that one. It was a wonderful way of recycling and getting new stories. But that was a tradition with the families that we knew that was interesting. Yeah, another thing that I thought, the Fortress of Solitude, I thought was really fascinating because I think it really showed the other part of, you know, being thoughtful or, you know, being, you know, not just in the action, but in all of the what am I doing here, and how can I best fulfill my role in the universe? I thought that was kind of really good. The last thing I wanted to mention was, does anybody remember the Bizarro Superman?
Yeah.
And that was really incredible. Does anybody know what those are? It's basically And you showed something, I think it might have been a Green Lantern, where half of the guy's face was, but that was a different thing. There's a whole series called The Bizarro World,
Yeah,
and it was the opposite of the world that we experience in terms of what is good and what is bad.
mhm,
And the Bizarro guys all looked pretty odd and,
mhm,
but they thought bad was good and good was bad.
mhm.
So thanks for letting me know today.
Okay,
Am I supposed to use it?
Yeah. also, while they're passing the mic over, the Flash story in the 1960s got the most comments by readers writing into the Flashgrams was a story called The Doorway to the Unknown. And this talks about somebody coming back from the afterlife to try to change something for the better. I've got 5 copies of this. So if you're really a comic book juvenile like me, and you would like a copy, I'll send them over there for Steve to pass around. Again, there's only 5 of them, so only take it if you would really be interested in reading it. So pass those. Okay, off to Norley.
So my question is actually for the women, which I think today might be the majority. And I'm really interested to know what you guys were reading, because I think comic books really were mostly geared towards young men, young boys. For me, I knew that my mom was a teacher, so I grew up reading things like Nancy Drew.
Okay.
And I think the whole idea about comic books and comic book characters has come into the mainstream now, where we enjoy, in general. But I'd love to hear what young women were reading in the 50s and 60s.
He was a detective,
Yes,
solving
a
crime,
young lady.
young lady solving crime.
Yeah, and had friends, you know.
Hardy Boys were the guys.
We read those.
Nancy Drew, and who else was there another lady, gal that was,
She had a friend. She had a friend. No, you haven't mentioned Mad comic books.
yeah, well, that's a different, the very last page of your handout. I did put a, from 1968. Of course, Mad was a satire, it poked fun at everybody and everything. And, but it has some very potent and powerful messages in there.
Life doesn't change after.
Yeah, so this was an excerpt from Mad Magazine, 1968.
Ron, have you taken a look at the current crop of superheroes, the Avengers and all of those? Do they contain the same kind of moral lessons?
I certainly don't have the full background. At best, I have a little surface skimming. I'm basically just going back and rereading stuff from my era. I don't have good familiarity too much of what's going on right now. The comic book has almost died out. You can't find it at a Rotary rack at a drugstore or a grocery store, or you would be hard pressed now if somebody said, if we all dispersed right now and said, find a comic book you can buy in the next hour, we'd have a terrible time trying to find one.
But the libraries are full of the graphic novels.
Graphic novel.
Now,
Good point.
Yeah. This is the Archie.
Okay, okay,
And,
okay,
fluffy.
okay.
I want to ask a question of one of our class members who's a former bookstore owner. Mitch Hankins.
Oh.
Used to have a bookstore in Breckenridge years ago.
Wow.
I wanted to ask Mitch what he thought about comic books and books in general. Good. Good. Did you sell comics?
Cannot speak to comic books in particular. It was not my genre, except for the Classics Illustrated. I used to read
Oh, okay.
those all the time. Yeah. I probably shouldn't speak to bookstores
That's
because
okay.
it's not there anymore. When I first bought the bookstore in 2007, there were 5 bookstores in Summit County. And
Wow.
today there's one.
Wow.
They just have kind of, fallen out of favor in a way
Yeah.
with the advent of e-readers. My thought when I bought the bookstore is that, well, people are gonna bring a book or something with them when they come up to go skiing or vacation, and they may finish it and want to buy another one. And I didn't foresee the coming of the e-readers where people could just order
Oh,
one,
yeah.
download it online.
And fewer people reading in general, is that right today?
I can only speak to myself, and I've, through most of my life, I was a voracious reader. But
Cell phones.
the
yeah.
phone is, I don't know the last time I've read a book at bedtime, trying to go to sleep,
Uh-huh.
but, it used to be a constant in my life.
Yeah, me too.
That's for sure.
Go ahead.
To Glenwood Springs last week with my daughter. And they did have a bookstore there. However, it was like this big. It was very small and they didn't have a lot of stuff in it.
Where was this?
In Glenwood Springs,
Oh,
in the
okay.
downtown area.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a very small bookstore, but it didn't have much in it.
but
We're looking though.
a lot of times it depends on the location. In Steamboat, there is a bookstore that's a stalwart of the community up there.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, Leanne.
I frequently go to the Tattered Cover, out west.
Tattered
Oh,
cover.
thank you. I frequently go to the Tattered Cover out west. I honestly have to say that I don't buy very much. I'm there scanning and then I look at what I can pick up on my e-reader.
But the bookstores, they do carry the graphic novels and anime things for, they have big sections for that. For kids today,
Library.
and libraries do too.
I know what's.
How many people still prefer books?
Oh.
Print.
Paper.
Books, yeah.
E-readers.
Yeah.
I can do it either.
Well, a lot of us probably do both. I do both.
I do a lot of books as well.
Feel the pages.
I like to burn the page.
Yeah.
Back and forth easier. Yes.
I use a
Oh, thank you.
I use a lot of books for this class. And I find as I go through a book, I underline it and star it. And then when I'm done, I can go build a class from a couple books pretty quickly by just pulling out 3 or 4 and yeah.
Yeah. George and Christine, and then we're about out of time.
This.
Sure. George, go ahead.
When you mentioned, Jack Armstrong, it brought back a lot of memories.
Oh, All-American Boy.
Yeah, Jack Armstrong, Jack Armstrong, Jack Armstrong. Boy, well, and that's like mid to late 40s.
Really?
Yeah, and there's 15-minute stories, Jack Armstrong, Sky King.
Oh, Scott.
Sergeant Preston in the Yukon.
Oh.
Sky King, all these 15-minute. And they all had moral
Oh, yeah.
stories. They were all.
Horrible westerns, dude.
Mad Magazine is what brought
Very
me
good.
into the future, but that was 53, 54.
Good point.
Very good. Pass the microphone back to Christine, please.
Make sure it's on.
Is it on? I like to read hardbound books also, but for time, I live alone, I read just hundreds of books, audiobooks. And so even though we think people aren't reading books, I for one have been reading several books a month by listening to audiobooks. So I think I'm far more better read now than I would have just to sit down to read a book. I like to do that too. But when we say people aren't reading anymore, I think we may be forgetting all those other people who are utilizing these other sources.
Good point.
I agree with you that people still aren't reading, but, in my case, I'm reading far more books than I ever had.
Wow. All right.
Very good. We're out of time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. That was fun. Okay, hope to see you tonight if you're coming to the party, and we'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah, I